You people always try to sneak into first class, don't you? Rachel Harper didn't whisper it. She didn't blink. She said it loud enough for 5 rows to hear. And when Marcus Coleman looked at her, bewildered, calm, ticket in hand, she reached out, tore the slip down the center, and let both halves fall like they were nothing. That moment, in a narrow aisle under the soft overhead light of seat 1A, changed everything. It didn't just reveal a bias, it exposed a culture. And what happened over the next 7 minutes would shake the airline to its core. Before we dive into this story, I want to know where you're watching from. Have you ever seen someone judged before they even spoke? If you believe in dignity, justice, and silent power, drop your city in the comments and let's stand together for equity. Because this isn't just a flight, this is a reckoning. Now, let me take you inside the cabin. Marcus Coleman, 42 years old, in a Navy sweater and khakis, boarded Pinnacle Air Flight 349 at Atlanta International Airport. The terminal was thick with tension that afternoon. A weather delay had grounded all outbound aircraft. The Global Health Summit in Atlanta had flooded the first-class cabin with executives, influencers, and power couples trying to outrank each other. But Marcus wasn't flying for luxury. He was en route to Nairobi for a charity fundraiser he helped build from the ground up. Clean water, orphan sponsorship, school access. Not for headlines, for change. Still, he carried something heavier than luggage that day. On the seat beside him was a folder filled with screenshots from Reddit threads, anonymous posts by former Pinnacle employees, allegations, stories of discrimination, classism, backdoor bribes. Marcus hadn't spoken publicly about it, but he had read every single one. He was the CEO of Pinnacle Air, owned 35% of it, and today, he flew in disguise, dressed like a man no one would notice. And they didn't. Not the way they should have. Not when he stepped into the cabin. "Sir," Rachel said, blocking his path, "I need you to step back. First class is full." He calmly raised his boarding pass. "Seat 1A, he said. "Window." "That's not possible," she replied, voice clipped. "This seat's been reassigned." Behind her, a white couple, Victoria and Gregory Langston, stood with smug smiles and a bottle of pre-departure champagne already in hand. Victoria's heels clicked as she moved closer. "There must be some mistake," she said, eyes flicking over Marcus's sweater. "This gentleman must be confused." Gregory didn't even speak, just nodded slowly like the matter was settled. The irony was thick. The airline's own CEO, mistaken as a fraud by a crew who couldn't see past his skin color or his choice of clothes. Marcus didn't flinch. "I have a confirmed ticket," he said. "It's scanned and loaded. I checked in early." Caleb Grant, a younger flight attendant, stepped up beside Rachel. Caleb looked exhausted. His shift had started hours ago in Denver and carried through a red-eye leg. He tapped the screen on his tablet, eyes narrowing. "I'm not seeing a Marcus Coleman in 1A, he said. "Says the seat's reassigned to Langston?" "You're looking at a glitch," Marcus said. "That's my seat." Rachel's tone sharpened. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step into economy, or we'll have to involve airport security." Then came the moment that froze the entire aisle. Rachel looked down at his boarding pass again, scoffed, and tore it clean down the middle. "Not anymore." The paper slipped from her fingers. It didn't float. It dropped like something final. Marcus stood still. His silence wasn't surrender. It was calculation. This wasn't the first time. At 18, he'd stood at a gate in Houston, heart racing, as a white gate agent held his ticket up to the light and asked if he'd stolen it. At 25, he'd been pulled aside by a flight crew who whispered that his seat assignment must be a mistake. And at 30, he was escorted off a business-class cabin after being mistaken for someone unauthorized. Each moment, he'd swallowed it, focused forward, built his legacy. But now, he wasn't a passenger with no recourse. He was the most powerful man on that plane. Still, he said nothing. Yet. Rachel turned her attention to Victoria, offering a warm smile and a glass of white wine. "We're so glad you're flying with us again, ma'am," she said. "We hope today is much smoother than last time." "Oh, I'm sure it will be," Victoria said, loud enough for Marcus to hear. "We've made sure everything's in order. No more confusion." Marcus stepped back. Refusing to sit down, Caleb positioned himself as a wall in the aisle. "We're going to need you to clear the walkway." "Sir." "What policy allows reassignment of a confirmed first-class ticket?" Marcus asked. "Because I'd like to see it." Caleb hesitated, eyes scanning the screen. "Look, I don't know who you are, but we don't have time for this." A woman across the aisle lifted her phone. Elena Morales, an investigative journalist facing layoffs at her local newsroom, had started filming. She didn't announce it, just quietly let the red light blink. Behind her, another passenger, Derek Holmes, stood slowly, a tall, broad-shouldered black man, with quiet dignity and a presence that filled the cabin like thunder. "Is there a problem with his boarding pass?" Derek asked. "Or just with him?" "Sir, sit down," Rachel snapped. "This doesn't concern you." "It does," Derek replied, "because I've been where he is. I flew aircraft for 12 years before I was grounded for reporting misconduct, so I know how this works." Rachel turned her back to both men and smiled again at the Langstons. Caleb muttered something under his breath and checked his tablet again. "We'll sort this out after we push back," he said. "But right now, the priority passengers need to be seated." "Priority?" Elena said from behind her phone. "Can you define that? Because I'd like that on record." The atmosphere shifted, not suddenly, but visibly. A few heads turned. A mother held her child closer. Someone 2 rows back pulled out a phone. Rachel's lips tightened. She motioned to Mia Chen, a quiet, newer flight attendant. "Help economy with beverage setup," she barked. Mia froze for a second, watching Marcus, then obeyed. She didn't speak, but her glance lingered. She knew what she was seeing. And Marcus? He watched it all, his back straight, expression unreadable, somewhere deep in his coat pocket. His phone recorded quietly. Somewhere deeper. A memory surfaced. His father's words, spoken decades ago on a back porch. "You don't have to raise your voice to raise the truth. Let the world see who's wrong." Elena's video uploaded mid-flight delay. Within minutes, a travel vlogger reposted it. Comments poured in. "Why is he not allowed to sit? They tore his ticket? This is 2024, right?" Rachel didn't know it yet, but the fire had already started, and she was standing on the matchbox, just 5 feet from Marcus, and 7 minutes from losing everything. Rachel Harper folded her arms tightly across her chest, lips pursed, as if the pressure would somehow push this moment back into control. "Sir," she said again, louder this time. "We've already explained this. You no longer have a valid seat in first class." Her voice didn't tremble. It sharpened. She gestured toward the curtain that divided first from economy, like banishment was a courtesy. "If you refuse to comply, I will have you removed by airport security." Marcus stood calmly, eyes steady, not flinching, not blinking. "Removed?" he asked, his voice quiet but weighted. "Because my confirmed seat was reassigned after being paid for by someone else?" He didn't raise his tone. He didn't need to. The edge in his words cut cleaner than a shout. Victoria Langston let out a small, theatrical laugh. "Please," she said, waving her hand. "This is ridiculous. Let the real passengers take their seats. We paid good money to be here." Caleb, tablet still in hand, stepped forward again, his eyes darting nervously between Marcus and Rachel. "Sir, I've checked the manifest. You're not on it. The seat is registered to Langston. Then the manifest is wrong, Marcus said. Firm now. You're looking at a system error. Sir, Caleb repeated, voice lower now, more uncertain. You don't look like someone who flies 1A. He realized the mistake the moment it left his mouth, but he didn't correct it. He just swallowed, looked away, and pretended to keep scrolling. The insult, unspoken but deafening, hung between them. Rachel took that as a cue. Let's not make this harder than it needs to be. We've got an entire manifest to accommodate, and the storm delay already has us backed up. Then she leaned in slightly, lowering her voice just enough to mask the venom with civility. You should know how these things work by now. Marcus didn't respond, not immediately. He turned slightly toward the aisle, aware of every eye on him, and let the silence stretch. Derek Holmes stepped forward again, his security badge clipped to his carry-on. You're not going to call security on a man for asking to sit in the seat he paid for. He said flatly, That's not policy. That's personal. Rachel's face flushed. You are not authorized to interfere in crew proceedings. I'm a licensed security officer and former pilot. Derek replied, If you're making decisions based on appearance instead of documentation, then I'm interfering as a witness. Elena. Still filming. Zoomed in slightly. Rachel, can you confirm if the Langstons were assigned 1A through the booking system, or if there was an override? Rachel didn't answer. Instead, she turned her body to block Elena's line of sight and made a small motion to Caleb. Caleb hesitated, then lifted his tablet again. Internal memo says reassignments allowed at crew discretion during ground holds. For a $600 bribe? Marcus asked sharply. Caleb blinked. What? A smartwatch, said a voice from the back of the cabin. A younger man stood, raising his wrist. It recorded her taking the envelope. I didn't know what it was at first, but I uploaded the clip to the Reddit thread. It's already circulating. A stunned hush rolled through the cabin. Rachel's hand dropped to her side. Caleb looked at her, wide-eyed. What did you do? He whispered. Rachel didn't answer. Victoria stepped forward, the mask slipping from her face. This is outrageous. You people are making a scene out of nothing. Her voice cracked on the word you, but she said it anyway. Marcus stepped closer, speaking now with quiet control. You tore up my ticket, lied about my presence on the manifest, took a bribe to hand my seat to someone with less claim but more privilege. Then you threatened to have me removed for resisting your lie. Rachel backed up a step. I did what I had to, she muttered. My daughter needs surgery. I didn't think it would. Justify this? Marcus finished. Your desperation does not excuse discrimination. It wasn't about that, Rachel snapped, but her voice wavered. It was just protocol. Elena, camera steady, interjected. Protocol doesn't accept cash in envelopes. Caleb stepped aside, eyes to the floor, while the murmurs of the cabin passengers began to grow. I skipped DEI training, he said suddenly. Rachel told me it wasn't required if I had union coverage. She said it would slow me down. He turned to Marcus, voice cracking. I'm sorry. I didn't know who you were. I didn't think. That I belonged here? Marcus asked. Not cruel, just stating what had already been made clear. Caleb nodded, barely. A notification dinged on Elena's phone. She checked it and held it up. You'll want to see this. A former flight attendant just leaked an internal chat log. Shows Rachel telling Caleb to ignore a reservation if someone suspicious claimed it. She labeled Marcus by description. Rachel paled. That wasn't supposed to. She stopped. No words came next. Derek took a half step forward. What's happening now isn't just a mistake. It's a pattern. I've seen it, lived it, buried it. But today, this ends. Marcus inhaled, slow and steady, then reached into his jacket pocket. Still calm, still quiet. I'm calling my assistant, he said simply. Her name is Tara Wells. She's contacting the media and our legal team. Rachel froze. Your assistant? Yes, Marcus replied. And you'll want to remember that name. As he dialed, Caleb slumped into the jump seat. Defeated. Rachel took a shaky breath. Victoria crossed her arms defiantly, but even she seemed rattled. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't shout. He just stood there, making the call. While the cabin held its breath and the soft light above seat 1A glowed like a spotlight, Elena's feed continued to stream as the world outside the aircraft began to pay attention. Caleb's voice shook as he stood, still clutching the tablet as if it might shield him from what he already knew was coming. I just followed the override, he stammered. But even he could hear how hollow that sounded. Rachel said it was protocol, but the word protocol meant nothing now. Not with Elena's live stream rolling and the clip from the smartwatch showing Rachel taking the envelope already trending. The cabin had grown tense, not chaotic, not loud, but charged. Passengers leaned forward, phones in hand, watching like the aisle had become a courtroom. Rachel, still trying to reclaim control, pointed at Marcus and snapped. I need to see identification. Now. Excuse me? Marcus said, his tone even, firm. You've already scanned my boarding pass. You tore it. You claimed I wasn't in the manifest, and now you want my ID. Why? To confirm who you are, she said quickly, but the room heard the pause. We don't just take people at their word. You took them. Marcus nodded toward the Langstons. At their word. Gregory looked away. Victoria scowled. This is absurd. Are we really doing this because one passenger thinks he's entitled to? That seat, Marcus interrupted, was mine, purchased, confirmed, and reassigned through cash and bias. So yes, we are doing this. Rachel took a step forward. Show me your ID or I will contact airport security. Caleb stepped forward too, clearly unsure now whose side he was supposed to be on. It's just a formality, he mumbled. And that was the moment. That was when he reached out, quickly, nervously, and snatched the leather wallet from Marcus's hand. Gasps rippled through the cabin. Elena's camera didn't flinch. He just grabbed his ID, she said, narrating to her audience. That's assault. That's theft. Caleb froze, the wallet in his hand, and looked around as if only now realizing he was being recorded. I didn't mean, he began, but his mouth had already betrayed him. Rachel turned away, muttering something under her breath. Marcus reached forward and calmly took the wallet back from Caleb's shaking hand. You are spiraling, he said quietly, and it doesn't have to go this far. You're escalating this, Rachel barked, trying to redirect the blame. We gave you options. You gave me prejudice, Marcus answered. Wrapped in fake policy and sealed with a bribe. Rachel's hands clenched. Behind her, Victoria Langston swirled her champagne and muttered, I don't understand why this is even still a conversation. Elena caught that line, loud and clear. You don't? She asked, still filming. Maybe because every word coming out of your mouth is reinforcing the very thing we're exposing. Derek stepped forward again. How many passengers of color have you tried this on before? He asked. How many didn't film it? How many were escorted off and humiliated without a witness? Rachel's jaw tightened, but she didn't answer. Marcus looked to the side and saw Mia Chen frozen near the curtain. She'd heard every word, but said nothing. Her eyes met his, and then, barely perceptible, she nodded. A quiet sign. She knew. She was watching, She wasn't ready to act yet, but something in her had shifted. Evan Kim, still standing near the jump seat, finally stepped forward. "Rachel," he said cautiously, "if this is about a booking error, we should bring in the gate agents. If this is something else, I think we need to stop." Rachel wheeled on him. "Are you serious? You want to undermine your own senior lead?" Evan held up both hands, palms out. "I just don't want to be in the middle of a lawsuit." "Too late," Elena muttered, angling her camera toward Evan. "The footage already has 300,000 views." Caleb's face turned gray. "Oh my God," he said, barely above a whisper. "My family's gonna see this." Marcus remained still, grounded. "Now you care?" he asked, not cruelly. "Now that your name might be in the feed, you worry about the consequences?" Caleb looked at him, guilt and fear in his eyes. "I didn't know who you were." Marcus didn't blink. "That's the problem." Rachel, now visibly sweating, tried to pivot. "Look," she said, "I had no choice. My daughter is sick. I'm drowning in bills. They offered the money. I didn't go looking for it. You didn't refuse it either." Marcus replied, "You sold a seat that wasn't yours to sell. Then you tried to erase the person who belonged in it." Her eyes flicked to Elena. "Can you please stop recording? This is a private matter now." Elena laughed, dry, tired, unimpressed. "You made it public the second you tore up a boarding pass and called security on a black man in khakis." A sharp ping came from Elena's phone. She glanced down and her brows lifted. "This just in," she said, turning the screen toward the nearby passengers. "A whistleblower just leaked an internal crew chat to me. It shows Rachel told Caleb to flag any suspicious passengers before boarding. And guess what? There's a photo of Marcus from earlier today, labeled..." Rachel took a step back. That wasn't meant to be public." "But it is," Marcus said. "And now, so is the truth." Gregory Langston spoke for the first time in several minutes. "We're just lawyers," he muttered. "We didn't know this would turn into this." "You're a corporate lawyer," Derek said flatly. "Your firm helped Pinnacle expand into Europe. You knew exactly what this was." Elena's camera turned toward Gregory. "Care to comment on the financial ties between your firm and Pinnacle?" Gregory turned pale. "No comment." "Then sit down." Derek said, "Because your power play just collapsed." Rachel looked at Caleb. Caleb looked at the floor. Evan looked at Mia. And Mia finally, quietly, took one step forward, not toward Rachel, but toward Marcus. She didn't say a word, but her presence spoke volumes. Marcus turned to the camera. "You wanted to see who I am?" he said. "You're about to..." And then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a card. One no one on that plane expected to see. The card never made it to the open air. Not yet. Marcus let it rest in his palm, thumb grazing the edge, but his eyes stayed locked on Rachel's. He wasn't ready to show it, not until they showed who they really were. Rachel stared at him, her jaw tight, trying to read his stillness, trying to find a crack. "What's that?" she asked, her voice taut. "More paperwork?" "Proof," Marcus said calmly, but he slipped the card back into his pocket, as if daring her to dig deeper. "But first, let's finish watching how this plays out." Rachel looked like she was about to snap. "You're being deliberately disruptive," she said. "Obstructing a crew-led process. That's grounds for removal." "Removal," Marcus echoed, glancing at Derek and then Elena. "Based on what, exactly? A torn ticket, a rigged system, and a cash handoff?" Elena lifted her phone higher, keeping him centered in the frame. "The footage is still live," she said. "We're at over 500,000 viewers, multiple reposts." trending on air travel forums. Every move is being watched. I don't care who's watching, Rachel snapped, but the tremor in her hands betrayed her. You will, Elena said, because when truth breaks the surface, it doesn't ask permission. Rachel spun around toward Caleb, whispering urgently. Caleb, still seated, looked like someone had drained every ounce of confidence from his body. He was on the manifest, he said quietly. Before the reassignment, I remember seeing his name. Then why didn't you say anything earlier? She hissed. Because I didn't want to fight you, he replied, barely audible. I needed the hours. I needed the flight. And you. I protected you, she snapped. And now you're going to fold? Evan stepped in from the side, breaking the moment. There's more, he said carefully, glancing at Marcus. Something you all should know. Rachel narrowed her eyes. This better be good. The bias logs, Evan said. Crew tracking software. Every report submitted by staff gets time-stamped and archived. Mia and I accessed the system last week, just out of curiosity, and we found a pattern. He turned to Mia. Tell them. Mia stepped forward, hesitant but steady. Certain crew members, mainly Rachel, flagged passengers repeatedly for being non-compliant or suspicious. But there were no follow-up reports, no escalations, just patterns. Mostly men of color, mostly quiet passengers, almost all of them reassigned or removed. A murmur spread across the cabin. Rachel's face flushed red. You accessed personnel records? She barked. That's a violation of union policy. So is falsifying safety concerns to justify discrimination, Evan replied. And falsifying logs, Mia added, softer but firmer. We printed 2 of them. They're with the union now. Anonymous for now, but not for long. Rachel's fury began to dissolve into something uglier. Panic. You think you can take me down because you disagreed with one decision? No, Marcus said, stepping forward again. But they didn't make that decision. You did. And now everyone's seeing the cost. Victoria Langston groaned. This is beyond tedious, she muttered. Do you know who I am? Do you know what board I sit on? You sit on nothing now, Derek replied, voice like gravel. You bribed your way into someone else's seat. That's not prestige. That's fraud. Gregory, slumped against the bulkhead, didn't even try to defend her. Can we just resolve this and move on? He mumbled. There's nothing left to resolve, Marcus said. Not until accountability meets light. At that moment, Derek's phone buzzed. He checked the screen, eyes narrowing. You're going to want to hear this, he said, lifting the device. There's a leak. New one. Internal audit report. Just surfaced on the same Reddit thread Marcus was reading before boarding. He looked at Elena. Confirmed? Elena scrolled quickly, then nodded. It's real. Internal compliance flagged a cluster of false bias reports at Pinnacle's 3 major hubs. ATL is one of them. And who was the common denominator? Marcus asked. Elena held up the report. Rachel Harper. Rachel took a shaky step backward, her mouth opening, but no words came. This is harassment, she finally gasped. You can't just accuse me of... You did it to yourself, Marcus said. Every log you falsified, every bribe you accepted, every innocent passenger you humiliated. I had to, Rachel whispered. I was out of options. My daughter. She has stage 2 leukemia. I've been trying to cover treatment. Do you understand what that does to a person? For a beat, the plane was silent. The tension cracked, but didn't collapse. Marcus's expression didn't harden. It softened. I'm sorry for your daughter, he said. But pain doesn't give you permission to harm others. That's not survival. That's surrender. Caleb sat up, guilt now painted on every inch of his posture. Rachel told me she'd cut me from future flights if I didn't follow along. I was scared. I made it worse. I thought he'd just leave. And if I had? Marcus asked. You'd have all gone home and slept fine, wouldn't you? No one answered. Marcus looked out the window for a moment. Rain had begun to patter lightly against the glass. The thunderstorm that had delayed departure was rolling in. Ironic, given the storm now ripping through the cabin. Tara, he said calmly into his phone. Prepare the statement, begin the process, and halt the flight. We're not leaving this runway until this crew is removed. And just like that, Rachel's final thread of control snapped. Marcus turned back toward the front of the cabin, his voice low but unmistakable. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, glancing calmly between the flight crew and the stunned passengers. My name is Marcus Coleman. I'm the CEO of Pinnacle Air, and I own 35% of this airline. A pause fell like silence before thunder. Caleb's jaw dropped. Rachel's knees buckled slightly. Gregory straightened in disbelief while Victoria, for the first time, looked unsure of herself. You're lying, Rachel muttered, voice shaking. There's no way. But Marcus reached once more into his coat and drew out a black card holder, sleek, minimal. He opened it and handed the metal CEO identification card directly to Derek. Derek inspected it, nodded once, then turned and held it up toward the cabin like a courtroom exhibit. Elena zoomed in with her phone, broadcasting it live. It's real, she said. Confirmed. This man is who he says he is. Rachel's mouth opened, but no sound emerged. Caleb leaned back slowly, pale as the overhead light above seat 1A that now felt more like a spotlight than illumination. I didn't know, he said, more to himself than anyone. I had no idea. And if I had been anyone else, Marcus asked him directly, if I were a man with less power, less money, less reach, how far would this have gone? No one answered. Not Caleb, not Rachel, not the Langstons. This flight is no longer departing, Marcus announced clearly. I am halting all movement until a new crew is assigned. This team, Rachel Harper, Caleb Grant, and the 2 crew members who stood silent as this unfolded, are hereby dismissed from active duty, effective immediately. He turned to Mia, whose eyes widened. Mia Chen, he said, your quiet integrity and refusal to participate in this have not gone unnoticed. From this moment forward, you are promoted to lead flight attendant. You'll assist the transition team when they board. Thank you for your courage. Mia blinked fast, overcome, but nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, sir. Thank you. Elena swung her camera toward Rachel. You just got fired by your own CEO, on camera, in front of the world. Any final words? Rachel shook her head slowly, then turned away. I did it for my daughter, she mumbled again, almost inaudible. But I went too far. She deserves better. Marcus replied, and so does every passenger you targeted. Caleb remained seated, eyes glazed. I can't undo it, he said softly, but I want to fix it. I'll do whatever I have to. You'll start with an official suspension and retraining, Marcus said. Pending review, your future with Pinnacle will be based on transparency, not convenience. Victoria finally stood, her composure cracked. You can't ban us. We're platinum tier members. My husband has stock options. Our law firm was removed from our advisory panel 6 months ago, Marcus said coldly. I reviewed your files personally. Gregory's last relevant contract expired last quarter. Your access ends today. You are both banned from all Pinnacle flights, indefinitely. Gregory let out a low breath like he'd been hit. We'll sue, Victoria spat, her voice cracking. Then sue, Marcus said. And in discovery, we'll unpack every detail of that bribe, your fake elite booking trail, and your involvement in 2 pending complaints tied to gate agent manipulation. Good luck." Around them, a few passengers softly clapped, not loud, not sarcastic, just enough to shift the air, enough to say, "We saw, we felt that." Marcus turned to Elena. "Upload it all," he said. "I'll authorize a press release. No PR spin, just truth." Elena gave a half smile. Phone still steady. "Already done. Trending on 3 platforms. You're being hailed as the quietest boss who ever fired 4 people with a sentence." "Not proud of the moment," Marcus said, "but it was necessary." Derek clapped him gently on the shoulder. "Justice doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it just needs a witness." Mia stepped forward again. "Sir, if I may, there's something else." She reached into her jacket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. "I was the one who leaked the bias logs to the union, anonymously. I couldn't stay silent. Even though I was scared, I didn't know if I'd lose my job, but I knew I couldn't let passengers keep getting hurt." Marcus accepted the paper, scanned it, then looked up at her. "You did the right thing," he said. "Truth that costs you something is the truth that matters most." He turned back to the cabin. "We'll wait for a replacement crew. This flight will resume after integrity is restored, not before." He made one last call to Tara. "Board actions authorized. Media escalation cleared. We move forward now." Victoria tried to say something, but Gregory pulled her back. It was over. Elena narrated the final shot of the cabin team walking off the plane. Rachel hollow-eyed, Caleb blinking hard to hide shame, the 2 silent crew trailing behind, and Mia, tall, steady, took her place at the front galley, a quiet symbol of what happens when courage meets consequence. The flight remained grounded as Tara Wells, Marcus's trusted assistant, finalized the internal report from headquarters. Within 20 minutes, Pinnacle's emergency board session was convened via secure call. Directors logged in from Chicago, London, and Tokyo. Faces stiff with shock as Tara laid out the raw footage, chat logs, and whistleblower testimony. At the head of it all stood Marcus, calmly dialing in from his seat on the grounded aircraft. The cabin hushed behind him. "No press briefings," he instructed. "No corporate spin. We're not burying this. We're owning it." The board, staggered but unanimous, moved fast. Rachel Harper's employment was officially terminated. On grounds of gross misconduct and falsification of bias logs, Caleb Grant was placed under official suspension with a mandatory retraining protocol, and the 2 silent attendants were relieved of duty pending review. But the fallout didn't end there. Elena's footage, now well past 3 million views, had sparked a wildfire across social platforms. Travelers reposted clips of Rachel tearing the boarding pass, Caleb grabbing the ID, and Marcus's quiet reveal. Hashtags circulated faster than legal memos. But it was the leaked chat transcript, Rachel telling Caleb to get rid of the suspicious guy before he gets too loud. That triggered a deeper investigation. One board member, skeptical at first, leaned back in his chair and admitted, "This is systemic?" And so reforms began. In a rare unanimous vote, the board approved Marcus's long-shelved Unity Skies protocol, a bold, overdue initiative that overhauled Pinnacle's internal reporting system, mandated bias training that couldn't be bypassed by union exemption, and introduced a rotating diversity panel of external auditors. It also created a second-chance track for crew members who admitted failures and demonstrated growth. "We don't just remove bad actors," Marcus said during the call. "We teach the ones who want to change. Redemption must be earned, not erased." The board approved funding reallocations, with $500,000 redirected from executive perks toward the Unity Skies Fund. That decision came just in time. as union leadership threatened a symbolic walkout to protest Rachel's firing, until Elena released a second document, a financial audit revealing Rachel's personal ties to a union official who'd protected her from 3 previous complaints. That official was removed by week's end, at ATL. The replacement flight crew finally boarded. Mia Chen now wore a fresh navy blazer and a new gold name tag. Lead flight attendant. The passengers applauded quietly when she introduced herself, and she simply smiled, bowed slightly, and said, "Let's continue this flight with fairness and dignity." Before takeoff, Marcus recorded a short message from his seat, authorized by the board. "To the passengers of Flight 349, he began, "what you witnessed today was not an isolated error. It was a symptom of something deeper, and we chose to face it. Change doesn't come through silence. It comes through action, transparency, and the courage to say, 'Enough.' We will earn your trust again, not through promises, but through policies that protect every traveler equally." Back at headquarters, the fallout deepened. Caleb voluntarily submitted a written statement acknowledging his failure to intervene. "I was afraid," he wrote. "Afraid of losing shifts, of standing up to someone who controlled my schedule. But that fear led me to hurt someone who deserved better. I want a path back, but I know it won't be easy." Marcus read it in silence, then approved Caleb's participation in the first Unity Skies retraining cohort. He included a note at the bottom. "Redemption is not for the comfortable. It's for the honest." Meanwhile, Elena's inbox exploded. Journalists from CNN, the BBC, and Reuters requested interviews. She declined them all. For now. "This wasn't about clicks," she said. "It was about truth." As her feed swelled with comments, she received a surprise email from a rival airline's PR team. "We're watching Unity Skies. Let us know when you're ready to talk reforms." Marcus's heart panged with both pride and sorrow. He hadn't wanted any of this to happen this way, but maybe it had to. Maybe the silence needed to break inside a cabin so everyone could hear it outside. He sent a message to Tara. "Draft the full report, release it at dawn, no redactions." As the aircraft finally pushed back from the gate, and ATL's tarmac lights danced across the fuselage, Marcus looked out the window and whispered to himself, "Now we rise right." 6 months later, the skies looked different. Not because the planes had changed, but because the people inside them had. Rachel Harper's name was no longer listed in any Pinnacle Air employee system. Her departure had been swift, her public apology muted, written, rehearsed, and ultimately hollow. Elena later uncovered that the statement had been ghostwritten by a PR contractor, and when she confronted Rachel with proof, Rachel didn't deny it. "I lost control," she admitted. "I thought if I just said the right words, I could start over." But the public had moved on, not with anger, but with clarity. Accountability, once evaded, had finally landed. Caleb Grant, after months of retraining and reflection, began working again, this time under close supervision, assigned to a mentoring program for new hires. He didn't make excuses. He didn't ask for sympathy. He just showed up, humbled. "I want to be the kind of crew member I needed to see that day," he told Mia during a layover in Denver. "I'll never forget the look in his eyes when he said, 'You didn't think I belonged.'" And Mia, now lead flight attendant on the Unity Skies implementation team, smiled and simply replied, "Then make sure no one ever feels that again." The Unity Skies protocol had grown far beyond the emergency motion pass that June afternoon. It was now a permanent fixture within Pinnacle Air's operations. Mandatory DEI training enforced with rotating audits, real-time passenger feedback panels, and an internal whistleblower hotline that led directly to an independent ethics board. 3 additional major airlines had requested access to the framework. And one, Skybridge Air, formally adopted it after an incident eerily similar to Marcus's. He didn't relish that news, but he recognized its purpose. The goal was never vengeance, he said to a panel of aviation leaders. The goal was to ensure no one ever has to carry their dignity like armor just to get on a plane. Derek Holmes returned to his security work, but also served part-time as a traveling Unity Skies liaison. Speaking to staff about the dangers of normalized bias, "I didn't plan to be involved," he once told Elena. "But once you witness truth that loud, silence isn't an option anymore." Elena herself had received awards for her footage, but she declined them all instead. She asked Marcus for a voucher, not for travel, but to donate to a journalism scholarship fund in her late editor's name. "He told me truth matters more than polish," she said. "I think we honored that," Marcus agreed, on a quiet afternoon in Nairobi, standing beside a new water filtration system funded by the very trip he nearly didn't take. He recorded one final message. "When we boarded Flight 349, I didn't wear my title. I wore my past, the part of me that had been overlooked, profiled, dismissed. I carried that because I wanted to see what our airline had become. I didn't expect what I found, but I don't regret it." That message aired during Pinnacle's year-end meeting and was later adopted by Unity Skies as its opening module, in the closing minutes of that same session. Mia turned to Marcus backstage and asked what many had wondered. "How did you stay calm? After everything, the disrespect, the humiliation?" Marcus smiled gently. "Because my father taught me something when I was 13, he said. He said, 'Son, power isn't how loud you speak. It's how steady you stay when someone tries to erase you.' That stuck, and on that plane. I heard his voice louder than anyone else's. In the final scene of Elena's retrospective documentary, Marcus is seen walking through ATL's main terminal. No fanfare, no entourage, just a black man in a navy sweater and khakis, boarding another flight to another corner of the world, ready to continue the quiet work of building justice from the inside out. Passengers recognize him now, not for the scandal, but for the change. Some nod respectfully. Others approach with gratitude. One teenage boy, maybe 14, just lifts a hand and says, "Thanks for standing up." Marcus smiles and replies, "Thanks for seeing me." The screen fades to black with the Unity Skies motto stamped in soft white. Dignity should never be a first-class privilege, and just beneath it, Marcus's final call to action: equity doesn't fly on autopilot. We have to pilot it together. If this story hit you, tell us, where are you watching from? Have you ever seen someone judged before they even spoke? Drop a comment. And if you believe in justice and dignity, hit that follow button. Let's make sure stories like this are never ignored again.